What's up, guys? Right here working as usual, but this was too important just to let go because they're not just shooting, they're sending messages. Charlie Kirk, Dallas Ice, 2 attacks, both with bullets, and both of those bullets had engravings on them. This isn't random. This is ideological warfare that is being broadcast in brass. We're watching the temperature rise as a country, and this isn't metaphorical anymore. It's kinetic. The social fabric isn't just fraying, it's being targeted. And I have to feel like, and probably a lot of you feel like we're past the point of rhetoric and entering into a realm of action. Not just in politics, because this isn't about debates or elections. It's about polarization metastasizing into operational intent. Political discourse has become a staging ground for real-world escalation where ideology isn't just spoken, now it's coming armed. I mean, think about this. About 5 years or so ago, protests used to be the pressure relief valve. Now they're really nothing more but an ignition point. What used to be symbolic resistance is morphing into tactical disruption, and this line draws a boundary between civil unrest and asymmetrical engagement. And when we look back and look at all these attacks, they're nothing short of precision. They're on rooftops, on federal facilities, on ideology itself. And each engraved round, that's the manifesto. They're not just killing or trying to kill. They're broadcasting their message, and each round is its own release from these fringe elements. So looking back and, kind of dissecting all of this, we're not watching chaos. We're watching choreography, precision attacks, chosen targets, engraved intent. This isn't the collapse of an orderly society. Instead, it would seem that we are witnessing a new one trying to rise up next to it. One that doesn't ask permission, one that doesn't wait for consensus. And from the way it looks, if you're still treating this like politics, you're already behind. And here's the thing that really gets me is that meanwhile, the US is suddenly all back in on being with Ukraine while Russia rattles sabers. And what I mean by that is that now Russia is consistently threatening military action and projecting aggressive intent without necessarily engaging in direct combat. They are simply geopolitically posturing, wanting to either intimidate, signal strength, or provoke a response. It's basically the diplomatic equivalent of unsheathing a sword and waving it around and not striking yet, but making it clear that you're ready to. And when paired with NATO's Article 4 consultations, it signals that tensions are high enough for allies to start preparing for collective defense. And with all of that, really all you need to understand is that, at least in theory, if one missile crosses the wrong border, Article 5 triggers and you get collective defense. And that means there's no longer any debate. It's right off to deployment. And keeping it here in the US, we can't ignore the fact that while we had bullets engraved with ideology, at the same time there was another kind of weapon being prepped, one that we wouldn't have heard about until it was too late. Thank goodness, I'm sure you're all directed up on this, but the Secret Service foiled that Chinese-linked cyber plot, which was designed to dismantle the entire New York City telecommunications grid. Not disrupt it, dismantle it. Hundreds of servers, over 100,000 SIM cards, enough to send 30 million anonymous texts per minute. That's not spam, that is signal warfare. So, looking at that, these aren't just, little hacker groups. These are state-backed cyber units with, persistent access to our water, energy, and transportation systems. And they've been inside this country for years, just watching, mapping, not striking yet. And why is that? Because they're setting the conditions, whether they're waiting for Taiwan or just for some general escalation, or possibly even just waiting out for just complete and total war. Up until this point, so far, we've seen lone actors, one rooftop, one sniper, one cyber cell. But what happens when it's not just one? What happens when it's 5 shooters hitting 5 targets in 5 cities simultaneously? What happens when cyber sabotage isn't just probing, but timed to coincide with kinetic strikes and disinformation floods? So when you put all that together, that's not terrorism, that's insurgency. And the difference is coordination, because when attackers move in sync, they don't just overwhelm, they paralyze. We all know law enforcement can't be everywhere at once. Response times fracture, and then the end result of that is your public trust implodes. You think the grid's fragile now? Wait until it's hit by cyber, physical, and psychological vectors all at once. You think your team's ready? And by team, I mean your actual team that you're on or a part of, or your family, or your community. With that, now thinking forward and looking at all this, you need to test your comms under stress, simulate a blackout, practice silent coordination, because when coordination enters the battlefield, your margin of error disappears. This is why having an emergency comms plan isn't optional. It's not just about talking, it's about synchronizing your team, your family, your response, because once the lone wolf becomes a pack, the only thing that stops havoc is coordination of your own. And this is why getting your comms plan together for your home or your travel, which is obviously a lot harder, but still necessary, whatever it is, it's critical, because when cyber sabers rattle, the first casualty is always coordination and usually communications. We're watching kinetic attacks on rooftops, ideological warfare in brass, and now silent invasions into our infrastructure. And let me know your thoughts about all this in the comments section. I don't feel this is paranoia. To me, I'm looking at this as pattern recognition. You don't need panic, you need protocol. Rehearsed plans consisting of simplex, private repeaters, mesh networks, whatever you're planning on using, you just gotta have it, or at the least should be working on it. And with that, we'll see you on the next one. Be safe.